The most constant thing in the world is inconsistency. The world outside the church clearly affects the world inside the church, sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. The church is a religious institution, or an established organization with a public character that has a government, a hierarchy, a business model, assisting with projected financial and spiritual goals and outcomes, while at the same time being a unique family of families. This is the church. There are certain practices and systems that will bring life to the church or bring death. By system, I mean a set of principles or procedures according to which something is done. Every church has systems. You just may not have known that's what they were. By analyzing and recognizing the type of systems you have in place at your church, you will be able to assess whether or not these systems are harming and hindering or strengthening and growing your body of believers. Let's look at the text. Thriving Churches in the 21st Century. The book is divided into 5 sections with 12 chapters. Section 1. These chapters emphasize the philosophy behind analyzing church systems. Recognizing that there are societal quakes affecting how we do church is a much needed skill that many pastors appear to be without. Such a societal quake includes a new audience, new geographic and size values, new identities and affiliations, new communication and delivery systems, new methods and new structures, and finally, new cultural fears. Recognizing societal quakes, though, does not mean the church will respond appropriately. In fact, we can recognize 3 distinct areas that restrict church growth. Toxic terrain. This is where the church is a place of death, where unhealthy habits and practices are easily exercised by the congregation in the past are alike. Hot air balloon. This is where the church has the potential to inflate and rise off the ground. However, there are many obstacles and objections that keep the church grounded. Spinning plates. This is where 20% of the congregation is doing 80% of the work. A statistic that many ministers are familiar with and too often is the prevailing reality of church work and volunteer power. Section 2. Generating spiritual energy. These chapters focus on 3 systems. The pastoral spiritual life. The role of the pastor can never be understated, while oftentimes it appears to be underappreciated and at worst, misunderstood. From the pastor's attitude, unrealistic expectations, transparency with the congregation, the spiritual life of the pastor really is the driving force behind the church's vision and direction. If the pastor's spiritual life is in decline or non-existent, then the church will follow suit. The pastor who was open, honest, realistic, able to express goals, expectations, and delights shares his spiritual maturity with the congregation. It is in the pastor's private life where the church obtains their encouragement, their direction, and their example to love. Corporate intercession. Another system that generates spiritual energy is that of a prayer group, particularly a prayer group that strategically prays with intentionality and focus. These individuals intercede for the church in both private and public demonstrations of prayer. The private and public prayer lives of this ministry affect the private and public lives of the church and her members. The church will be strengthened in the development and creation of this team. The spiritual disciplines. Spiritual disciplines are not merely important, they are essential to the health of the church. Far from being judgmental, the pastor should be able to measure a congregational member's spiritual maturity based on their growth in the spiritual disciplines. This maturation starts small and specific, focusing on particular areas of the believer as they know that God is working in them. From there, the pastor, and the church for that matter, should be able to see how the believer's relationship with God is growing and strengthening based on these spiritual disciplines. Several of these disciplines have been discussed previously in the text, Spiritual Disciplines for the Christian Life. Section 3. Developing Effective Leaders. These chapters focus on 2 systems. Mentoring relationships. Whether we realize it or not, we are always mentoring someone in one way or another, whether by accident or on purpose. The purpose of mentoring relationships, with an honest relationship, goes both upward and downward, both internal and external. The developing of these mentors should begin with assessing if they have the appropriate skills needed for this type of relationship, and if they do not, how to hone those skills. This system also focuses on the different types of mentoring relationships: teaching, testing, counseling, apprenticeships, and monitoring. Team ministry. There is a vast difference between separating team talk and team walk. What exactly is team ministry, and what does it look like? What are the characteristics of a team? By providing a historical analysis of how systems have been created, structured, and implemented in church, we can see clearly just how important team ministry is in the spread of the gospel. Section 4. Increasing people flow. These chapters focus on two systems. People flow strategy. This system focuses on the means by which unchurched people move towards responsibility and involvement in the local church. Theologically, this is the process of conversion, restoration, and maturation. Within this strategy, we find that there are two models in this strategy: front door and side door. The ultimate goal of this system is to find out how to better direct the flow of people into the church and keep them there. Lifestyle evangelism. This system focuses on the one-on-one relationships that are essential for church growth. This type of system includes serving, inviting, befriending, and winning people to Christ. In this respect, we are imitating the disciples as Christ made them fishers of men. This system particularly focuses on the process of witnessing, the people involved, the attitudes of those people, and finding your perfect balance between evangelism, discipleship, church, and private life. Section 5. Charting amidst change. These chapters focus on the final three systems. Charting the future. A church that does not have a vision for her future is doomed to die. Maybe not tomorrow or the next day, but eventually. This can easily be avoided by returning to the basics: the mission, the values, the vision, and the goals of the church. It is also important for us to recognize the societal factors surrounding the local church: the neighborhood environment, having an awareness of the possible multicultural aspects of the varying ethnic groups around your church, and recognizing the potential cultural misperceptions that you may have about them. In short, how do we establish the church's DNA? Streamlining the organization. Generally speaking, old churches have a difficulty in adapting to change, while the younger churches don't. So what does the transition look like from an old church to a young church? This could be illustrated with 4 steps. 1. Revisit scriptural principles of organizational structure. 2. Review the purpose and function of organizational structure. 3. Study the principles that are shaping the structures of viable 21st century congregations. 4. Design an appropriate streamlining strategy. There are 2 types of organizational streamlining in the church. The first is permission and giving. This is where the congregation elects leaders and trusts them to lead, in short, by creating a board. This board would then set policies and give permission to the pastor to carry out these policies. The pastor, in turn, directs the staff and educates them so that they can equip the congregation for the work of the ministry. The pastor still casts vision and is the spiritual head of the congregation. The second system is fractaling. This means duplicating itself. This is where each ministry team duplicates itself, thereby doubling the ministry team's sphere of influence. Then that ministry team duplicates itself, and so on and so forth. The last system is thriving on change. The 3 key areas where the church must anticipate change are increased mobility, increased diversity, and increased capacity. By anticipating these areas of change, the pastor, the board, and the congregation can better prepare to not be hindered by these potential stumbling blocks in church growth. After reading and studying this book, you should be able to do the following. Identify the potentially harmful or beneficial systems currently in place in the church. Critique and analyze the efficiency of your church's current systems. Create and implement new systems to maximize the effective ministries from the church. This book was selected by the IPHC and NHM Schools of Ministry for the following reasons. In addition to DCPI and the New Horizons Ministry's compliance with church revitalization, this book provides additional material and insight to better assess your church's health. In addition to the Thriving Churches in the 21st Century workbook, you have an additional assignment. Write at least a 1-page essay in Times New Roman, double-spaced, at 12-point font on the following topic. Following these systems outlined in the text, where will your greatest challenge come from in the implementation of one of these systems, and how will you handle it? This has been course MCP 2.04 in the Ordination Level 1 Credentialing Series. Upon watching this course, please read the assigned text, complete the workbook, and type your essay. Please print the essay and place it in the back of your workbook. The next course will be over the text Introducing World Missions, Blessings, and Study to Show Yourself Approved.